Imagine you're a hunter. It's 40,000 years ago, somewhere in what is now Europe. Your tribe has 25 people. You haven't eaten in 2 days, and one of your group members just won't get up. He sits at the edge of camp. He doesn't talk. He doesn't eat. He stares into the distance. The other hunters are frustrated. They need him. He's strong, experienced, and knows the forest better than anyone. But he's been like this for 3 weeks now. Here's the thing nobody asks. What if that man wasn't broken? What if that silence, that withdrawal, that darkness was actually doing something useful for the tribe? Today we're asking, did depression help ancient tribes survive? This is not a video telling you depression is good. It's not telling you to stop therapy or throw away your medication. What it is a deep dive into one of the most controversial ideas in evolutionary biology. The idea that one of the most painful human experiences exists for a reason, and that reason might go back hundreds of thousands of years. Let's go. First, let's ask the obvious question. Depression is debilitating. At its worst, it stops people from eating, sleeping, working, and connecting with others. It can last months. It can be fatal. So why does it still exist? Evolution, in theory, should have wiped it out. Traits that consistently harm survival and reproduction get selected against. Over thousands of generations, they disappear. But depression hasn't disappeared. In fact, roughly 280 million people today suffer from it, making it one of the most common conditions on the planet. That's a paradox, and paradoxes in biology usually mean we're missing something. There are a few possible explanations. 1. Depression is a side effect, a bug in the system, like wisdom teeth or the appendix. 2. Depression used to be useful, but the modern world has made it malfunction. 3. Depression is, in some specific contexts, still doing exactly what it was always meant to do. Most researchers used to go with option 1, but over the last 20 years, a growing number of evolutionary biologists and psychologists have started arguing for options 2 and 3, and their evidence is fascinating. Let's look at what depression actually does. Not what it feels like, but what it mechanically does to a person. It slows you down. It withdraws you from social interaction. It makes you ruminate, obsessively think about one problem over and over. It reduces appetite and disrupts sleep. It drops motivation for almost every activity except the one problem you're fixated on. On the surface, that sounds like a disaster. But flip the lens, and those same features start to look like a very specific mode. A mode built for one purpose, dealing with a serious, complex, unresolved problem. In 2009, psychologists Paul Andrews and J. Anderson Thompson published a landmark paper titled "The Bright Side of Being Blue." In it, they proposed something that sounds almost offensive, that depression might be an adaptation specifically designed to help humans solve difficult social and personal problems. They called it the Analytical Rumination Hypothesis. Here's the core idea. In ancestral environments, the world our brains evolved in, survival often depended on solving complex, high-stakes problems. Who is cheating in the alliance? Why did my child die? What did I do to lose the trust of the tribe leader? How do I survive this winter with half my food stores gone? These problems are not simple. They require sustained, focused thinking. They require you to block out distractions, replay scenarios, consider other people's perspectives, analyze cause and effect. They require what Andrews and Thompson called slow, careful analysis. And depression, they argue, forces exactly that. The social withdrawal reduces distracting inputs, the loss of pleasure in normal activities. What's called anhedonia stops you from wasting energy on things that aren't the problem. The rumination keeps your mind locked onto the issue. Even the disrupted sleep, specifically the increase in REM sleep, may enhance emotional memory processing and problem solving. In other words, depression might be the brain going into deep focus mode, like a computer shutting down background apps to dedicate maximum processing power to one critical task. And there's some evidence this works. Several studies have shown that people in depressed states outperform non-depressed controls on certain analytical tasks, particularly those involving complex social scenarios and multi-step reasoning. The rumination, as painful as it is, produces more thorough thinking about the problem at hand. Now, does that mean depression is pleasant or desirable? Absolutely not. But it might mean it has a functional logic, a logic that was shaped by hundreds of thousands of years in a very different world. To really understand this, we need to picture life in a Paleolithic tribe. Not the cartoon version with clubs and grunting, the real version. Hunter-gatherer groups were typically small, 20 to 50 people. You knew every single person in your group, their moods, their loyalties, their history. Every relationship was permanent and high stakes. You couldn't just move away, block someone on social media, or find a new job. If you lost the trust of your tribe, you were in serious danger. Social problems in this world were survival problems. Being ostracized from a group in the Pleistocene was essentially a death sentence. Getting a read on who was trustworthy, who was gaining power, who was plotting against you. These weren't just social skills, they were life skills. Now think about the situations that would have triggered a depressive episode in ancestral humans. The death of a child, being blamed for a failure, a failed hunt, a fire that destroyed food stores, a public humiliation that damaged your status, a romantic partner choosing someone else, a betrayal by a close ally. Each of these represents a serious, complex social problem with no quick fix. And the adaptive response? Withdraw. Think. Don't get distracted by everyday pleasures. Focus. Analyze. Figure out what went wrong and how to recover your position. This is very different from how we experience depression in the modern world, where the triggers are often diffuse, chronic, and have no clear solution. Job stress, loneliness, existential uncertainty. The rumination engine fires up, but there's no discrete problem to solve. So it just runs. And that's when it becomes destructive. This is the mismatch theory. The idea that many of our evolved responses were calibrated for specific, acute ancestral problems. And they malfunction when dropped into the modern world's very different landscape of stressors. But the analytical rumination hypothesis is just one piece of the puzzle. There's a second major theory, and it focuses not on the depressed individual, but on the people around them. Evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Nessa, one of the founding figures in the field of evolutionary medicine, has proposed that depression may function partly as a social signal. Think about what visible depression communicates. When someone visibly withdraws, stops participating, goes quiet, loses their energy, it sends a message to the group. It says, something is wrong. This person is suffering. This person needs help, or space, or acknowledgement. In a small, tight-knit tribe where cooperation is everything, this signal has real value. A tribal member who's struggling with grief, betrayal, or overwhelming stress can't just quietly fall apart. The tribe needs to know. It needs to respond. With support, with adjusted expectations, with resources. And here's where it gets really interesting. Nessa compares depressive behavior to what he calls low mood states in non-human animals. When a subordinate animal loses a fight, it displays submissive behavior. It makes itself small, withdraws, avoids conflict. This isn't just a sign of weakness, it's a signal to the dominant animal. I'm not a threat anymore. Don't pursue this. I yield. In social animals, this signal prevents further aggression. It de-escalates. It preserves the social order without anyone else getting hurt. And it may allow the subordinate animal to eventually recover and reintegrate once the dust has settled and the loss has been symbolically accepted. In humans, the analogous situation might be losing social status, being outcompeted for a mate or a leadership position, or being the target of group anger. A visible low mood state says, I know I lost. I'm not challenging you. I'm processing this. Give me time. This social signal function of depression would have had enormous value in small, permanently connected groups where conflict could be lethal. It's a way of hitting pause, of saying to the social environment, I need a moment to recalibrate. And in a tribe that cared about its members' well-being, that signal would prompt a supportive, healing response. The tragedy of modern depression is partly this. We've built a world where that signal often goes unanswered, where the depressed person withdraws and the world keeps moving. The signal fires, but nobody receives it. Now, how strong is this evidence? And what do the critics say? Let's be honest, the analytical rumination hypothesis is controversial. Not everyone buys it. There are three main objections. First, depression doesn't always lead to insight. For many people, rumination just produces more rumination, a loop with no resolution. If it were truly adaptive, you'd expect it to consistently produce solutions. But it often doesn't. Andrews and Thompson's response. That's because modern depression is often triggered by unsolvable problems. The mechanism is functional, but the environment it's operating in is wrong. Like a fire alarm going off in a building with no fire. The alarm works perfectly, the building just has a faulty sensor. Second, the genetics of depression don't obviously support adaptation. If it were beneficial, you'd expect its genetic architecture to show signs of positive selection. The picture is messy. Depression involves hundreds of genes, most of which have tiny effects, and many of which also influence other traits. That's more consistent with a complex side effect than a clean adaptation. Counter-argument. Many adaptations involve complex polygenic architectures, and the relevant selection pressure may not be on depression specifically, but on the broader traits. Deep analytical thinking, social sensitivity, emotional reactivity, that also make a person vulnerable to depression under stress. Third, depression is not universal. Its expression varies enormously across cultures. In some societies, what we'd call depression manifests more as physical symptoms, chronic pain, fatigue, with little of the psychological rumination we see in Western patients. Does that support or undermine the adaptive hypothesis? This is genuinely unresolved. The honest answer is, we don't know. The evolutionary hypothesis is compelling and supported by some evidence, but it is not proven. It's one lens among several, and like all lenses, it illuminates some things and distorts others. What it does do, even if imperfectly, is shift how we think about the experience. It moves the question from, what is wrong with this person, to, What is this person's brain trying to do? That shift in framing has real implications for stigma, for treatment, for how we support each other. So, did depression help ancient tribes survive? Possibly, yes. In specific, acute, socially complex situations, the depressive mode may have been, and may still occasionally be, exactly the right response. A signal, a pause, a deep focus mode, a message to the tribe. Something is wrong, and I need space to figure it out. But we are not ancient humans. We live in a world of chronic, diffuse stressors that our brains were never designed to handle. We live in a world where the tribe that was supposed to receive the signal has been replaced by social media, open-plan offices, and cities of millions of strangers. The signal fires, and nobody's home. The practical takeaway from all of this is not that depression is fine and you should sit with it. It's that understanding it as a signal, rather than a flaw, a weakness, or a chemical glitch, changes how you approach it. What is the signal pointing to? What is the problem the brain is trying to solve? Is that problem actually solvable? And who in your life can help you receive that signal? The man sitting at the edge of the camp 40,000 years ago eventually got up. We don't know what his tribe did or said. Maybe someone sat down beside him. Maybe they gave him time. Maybe the problem resolved itself. Maybe it didn't. But he was part of a lineage that survived. And so are you. If you found this video interesting, there's a whole world of evolutionary psychology and behavioral science that looks at our modern minds through the lens of our ancient past. I'll put some recommended reading in the description. And if this topic hit close to home, reach out to someone. Not because you're broken, but because that's what humans have always done. See you in the next one.